By the Pantheon, if I find out whoever gave the order to infest this planet, I'm going to drag them out of their ship by their heels and put their mullish heads straight into the ground while I crush their neck. Listening to his commander speak, the XO realized that he wasn't kidding. This was supposed to be a routine invasion, a simple in and out, if you would say. A milk run, as they have heard humans call it. But now they're hearing other things from humans, mostly words and curses as they found them to be. Most of them have to do with sexual nature, but they have learned very quickly not to take it personal, even though you could tell that the humans many times meant it to be personal, although many didn't translate right. Something about mate me didn't actually come out completely right in the translator. Yet he still looked around and saw that only 41% of his units still remained on their feet, and they were continually backing away from the front lines, trying desperately to drag any equipment they could along with them. Most of their vehicles had already run out of fuel, as they couldn't be recharged and simply were left behind. They could hear the human weapons, the loud weapons that fired in, bouncing metal off metal as they got closer and then suddenly stopping. And then they could hear in the distance laughing. At least they think it was human laughter. The translator came up to, "What type of morons left this behind? Oh, this thing is nice. Oh, I'm gonna enjoy running these fuckers over with this." This did not go over well with the XO, as the captain continued to curse as he continued to move his men back behind the lines further and further. They began to wonder if they could even outpace the humans. It had been over a week since they started the invasion. The invasion started well enough, the XO thought, as they got into the atmosphere and were able to get onto the ground before the humans were able to mobilize most of their forces. Many of the areas of the planet were taken without much of an issue, except for the local flora and fauna taking over. In a few cases, these large felines would jump out of nowhere and just attack them out of the trees, dragging them anywhere. If they were very unfortunate, they ended up closer to what their home planet looked like, which was mostly what the humans call a swamp. And then these reptilians would jump out of nowhere, seemingly becoming a log into a reptile, grabbing them, dragging them underground, and the last thing they would see of their comrade is a simple splash in the water as the reptilians spun over and over and over again, many times leaving pink bubbles rising to the surface. At least once they realized what the reptiles had done as they saw the body come back up to the surface, missing the leg that the reptile had grabbed a hold of. It bobbed at the surface for a while, and then several other reptiles seemed to come out of nowhere, grab a hold of it, and drag it back down into the water. What type of horror planet is this? "Come on, we gotta keep moving. Let's go. We gotta move out." Everyone looked exhausted. They were so exhausted as they realized that this planet was not only difficult to traverse, as our vehicles couldn't handle much of the terrain. Our hovercraft were very inoperable in many terrains, most of which were overgrown with some sort of flora that would tear the side skirts apart or rip at the anti-gravity motors that were underneath and make it completely unusable. Tracked and wheeled vehicles worked a little better, but they just couldn't seem to keep going. They constantly had to recharge, as the higher gravity of this planet made it much more difficult for them to operate. However, it wasn't long before the invasion forces were able to push into dense population centers. The idea was simply to take them over very quickly and scare them enough so that they would simply surrender to our forces. This was not going to happen, as many of these humans seemed to run away, frightened at us, even though they stood almost twice our height. It didn't matter. Pretty soon, others showed up, other humans that did not run. At least, they didn't run away. In fact, they ran towards us. Many of us fired on them with our weapons. Our pulse cannons seemed to rip into them, flying them back several meters and usually crashing into something hard. We would cheer, "Yes, we got another one, a trophy for us. The women are going to love us for this. I'm gonna have his hide above my chair to show off the what the hell, it's not dead." The human would then get up, usually saying something that the translator would have trouble figuring out what it was. Many times this came out to be something like excrement or mate that. What? It didn't make sense. Yet this human would simply reach over, grab its weapon again, and continue to engage us. So we simply hit it with the cannons again. It took several of these hits before they fell down. Our handheld weapons were difficult to knock them down. However, they would make them flinch, as most indirect hits were not enough, and they would simply spin the human around. Many of them would laugh at this, seeing that we were completely outmatched as far as physical features, as our cannons were more than enough to take one of us out. We brought in heavier weapons, usually on the vehicles, and this seemed to do the job much better, but it wasn't long before we realized that this planet was very well set up for combat. It was not long before they had superiority in the skies above most of this planet. On the oceans, wherever our ships had touched down, not only did they have to worry about aircraft, but surface ships, as soon as they got within view, would begin to fire. Even beyond visual range, they would send projectiles over using some sort of flame, some sort of propellant, to fly over the horizon, then smash into our ships. We tried shooting them down, but there was just so many of them. And as soon as they could be seen, they would fire their dumb projectiles. These were not guided, and we could try to dodge away, but our ships were not exactly the most mobile. And even if we could get those out of the ground, well, it wasn't long before we found that below the waves, these humans had mastered another sort of technology. As one of our ships had called in with a distress call, how the bottom of their ship had somehow exploded, and then they could find multiple other cylinders coming through the water and smash into the underbelly of their ship again and again and again. It was like they were coming 2, 3, 4 at a time. They would wait a little bit, another 2, 4 of them coming in and just slam into the side more and more, creating huge holes to the point where the ship was too heavy, it couldn't lift off, and they simply had to abandon ship and hope that the humans would be merciful, as the escape pods did not have enough force to reach the outer atmosphere to be picked up. Our space superiority was complete. However, it was against our rules to fire down on the planet, not to mention we were kind of down here. We did not want to be taken apart by our own guns, so the order was never given to fire on the humans. But now, oh, I'm wishing they did. I cried to all the gods in the pantheon that they would simply deliver us from the humans, as we cannot keep up this pace. Since we had dropped most of our gear, we are running with barely any. Most everyone is out of rations and out of water. Those who have decided to drink the local water have gotten incredibly ill, many of them vomiting all over themselves, as there's something in the water that we cannot stand. They simply sit there and shake and wait for the humans to come and take them out. We can't stay, as the humans are advancing. The humans on the ground pushed against our forces constantly. They would force our lines to fall back or reinforce, but even if they were reinforced, they would come at us with munitions that would be launched from we have no idea where, and they would tumble down just in time for our alarms to go off, and then boom! A huge explosion would rip a defensive position apart. And then the humans would come in and push through, and we would have no choice but to retreat. And retreat we did, to another phase line. And then they hit that one, then back to another, then back to another, then back to another. And eventually a total recall was given for all forces to get off the planet. But we were unable to get off at our recall point. The humans had zeroed in on our ships, and using their suborbital fighters came in and just laid all sorts of hate on us. Hate in the form of explosives and some sort of thunder that would come out of the front of their ships. We would see what we thought was a laser at a point, but no, instead it was projectiles. A lot of projectiles coming down. These massive projectiles, when we got close and we found those that had deflected off the hull and not quite penetrated, we realized they were the size of our arms. What did we get ourselves into? And now we go to the final point. We hope that we can rest so that we can get there. But the humans have not stopped. Worldwide reports come in from everywhere as I sit here and listen to the radio as we walk. More and more of our units are being so close to overrun as the humans just will not stop. We fire munitions in between us and them, sometimes from orbiting ships, but the humans don't stop. We could see that some of them are the same ones that have been chasing us for days. Human days, which is longer than ours. We are so exhausted. We are starting to fall apart here as many of us fall on our knees. The commander, get up or the humans are going to kill you. We try to keep going. Many just lay down as they just don't have anything left. What is with these humans? We try our final defense, our final chance as one of our ships comes down. We can see it off in the distance, and they release the kacha. The kacha are quadrupeds. These kacha are mammalian quadrupeds with sharp, sharp fangs and sharp talons. And they will come in. They have been trained not to attack us, but they will take down any other species that come across. The kacha, I see them running past. There they go. Are they near the humans? We all stop and wait and listen. What the hell is that? Sit, dog. Oh, fuck you. Pop, 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 pop. No screams. There are no screams as we had hoped. The kacha are simply being shot to pieces by the humans' projectile weapons. Our breather is short-lived as we have to keep going. Our head start with our vehicles was not enough to keep us there, and we worry. How are they still able to keep coming at us? How can they keep doing that? As we finally reach the ship, we only have 14% of our unit with us. I grabbed several of the men who had dropped down, just fully exhausted, and dragged them inside, many of them falling into unconsciousness as soon as they hit the deck. We watch as the hatch begins to close, as others wave at us. Please, let us in, please. They're right behind us, please. But we cannot wait, because we can see the humans coming. And the humans are not going to stop. As we look down upon the planet, I wonder what is going to happen. And when we finally get up to our ship, we look across and realize, as our map is shown before us, the hologram shows that almost the entire planet has been taken back by the humans. How did they do this? We have a human prisoner. It is in one of their uniforms, so it must be military. We hook up a translator, and the captain asks, "So, you tell us, why do you not stop? What type of species does not stop when enemies pull back? Why did you not stop?" It laughed. That maniacal human laugh. Are you freaking serious? Did you do any research, you morons? You complete and total freaking gray turd-looking pieces of garbage. Seriously, what the hell is wrong? Dow! We shock him to try and get him back in. Suddenly, the human itself is very, very intense, looking at the one holding the remote for the shock chair that he's in. Do that again, I get out of this chair, and I rip your nuts off and shove them up your ass. This did not translate very well. Ripping off reproductives. Oh. That made everyone cringe as soon as our translators caught up to what he said and what he actually meant. So, tell us, human, why do you not stop? Again, what type of species does not stop? All others stop. This is what the human could hear, as the translator was not able to totally maximize its efficiency between the human language and ours. The human simply said, "You don't know diddly shit about humans, do you? We are persistence hunters." "What is this, persistent hunters?" "We chase them down. We chase you down. We chase all our prey down until they simply give up. It's that simple. Because once you piss us off, we don't stop. And seriously, if you're thinking of doing what I think you're thinking of doing, I think you should rethink what you think you're going to do. Because if you do what I think you're going to do, think again. Because right now, you've just annoyed humanity. You do not want to see us when we're pissed off." "Why? Why you not want to see angry human? Why human not want to see angry other human? Why?" The young soldier simply looked at him. "Really, you haven't figured that out yet? Well, allow me to demonstrate." And with that, he jumped up, grabbed a hold of the one that had the control in his hand, grabbed the control, and ripped the other soldier's arm clean off. As I watched one of my people on the ground holding his shoulder, screaming in pain, the human simply lifted up his arm and threw him down to the ground, then lifted up his foot and crushed down onto his neck. Holding the control to the shocker, he simply crushed it in his hand. The human then seemed to pause slightly and looked around and sighted in on the captain, the highest rank one there, and dove at him. The rest of us ran out of the room as the human started to rip him apart. We ran towards the bridge, telling the captain that the human was loose, the human was free, we had to stop it, vent it in a space or do something. The captain looked and said, I cannot vent. The door has been ripped open, and it's on its way. Send security teams." Watching through the viewer, they could see the security team shooting at the human with their pulse weapons, many of them knocking the human back or knocking him over, but he did not stop. The more they hit him, the more it seemed to hurt. The more he cursed, the more he spit, and the more that he was just pissed off. I send this message to all remaining forces. We are currently in the bridge, and the human has almost beaten down the door. Do not face humanity. Do not ever come to this planet, because if you do, the humans will want to take you down. They will want to kill you, and they will never, ever stop.